We want to thank you all for coming out today to help the city of Menifee celebrate Vietnam veterans. So welcome to today's annual Welcome Home Vietnam Veterans Ceremony. But before we begin, we'd like to acknowledge some dignitaries, city executives, and elected officials or their representatives. First, we have our mayor of the city of Menifee, Bill Zimmerman. Next, we have Mayor Pro Tem and U.S. Army veteran, Dean Dinas. The man with the golden voice, Councilmember Bob Carwin. Councilmember Lisa Sobek. We also have California State Senator Kelly Sayarto. We have Senator Sayarto's Senior District Representative, Amanda Fisher, who is a Gold Star wife. Representing Congressman Ken Calvert, my friend Jet Benavides. Representing California State Assembly Member Bill Asaley, we have Casey Deaver and Valerie Diaz. City Manager for Menifee, Armando Villa. Deputy City Manager, John Nix. And soon to be retired Paris Union High School District Superintendent, Mr. Grant Bennett. And he likes us to punctuate soon to be retired because he can't wait. We want to thank today's sponsors, Miller Jones Menifee Memorial Park and Starbucks, for enhancing today's event and for the general support of what we do here. We also want to thank Paris Union High School District and Paloma Valley High School for having us and hosting us today. But specifically, we want to point out and thank the Paloma Valley High School student organizations who are helping us today to welcome home Vietnam veterans, and there are several. They are the NJROTC, who you saw on your flanks as you walked in. So NJROTC, raise your hands. We also want to thank their instructor for leading them today, so thank you, sir. We have ASB, the Wildcat Brigade, ASL Level 4, and the Performing Arts Department. So folks, as you know, or you should know, we're here today to recognize and honor the approximately 2.7 million American men and women who served in Vietnam, which happened to be, as you all know if you read your history, one of the nation's most challenging and controversial conflicts. Now, for those that made it home, many were not met with gratitude and respect. But today, the city of Menifee is endeavoring to continue to honor and welcome home those Vietnam veterans. At this time, please welcome to the stage Dr. Frank Correa, who's a chaplain for VFW Post 4089, to offer words of inspiration.
Well, good morning and greetings to all of you. As a military history buff and a veteran myself, I've read a lot of military history over my long years, and something that always stuck with me were the interviews that I've heard and the books that I've read about our Vietnam War POWs in particular. And it was very moving to me to hear how they managed to survive, not just physically, but mentally and spiritually. And I found a common theme there. They said there was three things that they clung to and that sustained them: faith in God, faith in their country, and faith in each other. They knew that no matter how isolated they were physically, God was with them. I've heard it said that you plus God equals a majority. I believe that. With the transcendent God, we're never alone. No matter how alone we may feel, He's always there. Their faith in the country was the assurance and the hope that they, even though that they were prisoners, someday they were going to be brought home by their military, and they were. They also knew that they could depend on each other, and they did. I remember hearing them share how that even while in solitary confinement, they could communicate by rapping on the walls using the tap code. So they supported each other, even though they were isolated. So regardless of the circumstances, they depended on each other. They had faith in their fellow veteran. So those are the important examples of the value of comradeship that we have. We have each other, and that's no small thing to us veterans. I'm a war veteran too, and I understand the feeling that only another veteran or another war veteran will really understand. That the feeling that others don't get it because only another veteran was actually there. Now, while those experiences may seem to isolate us sometimes, they seem to isolate us from the rest of the society, it's those very things that binds veterans together, that shared experience that we have. You're not alone. We as veterans, we have each other. We're not just fellow vets, we're brothers and sisters for life. And that means something. It means that we have something that we earned and that we share for life. So to my fellow veterans today, we value your service and your sacrifice. So today we're here to pay tribute, to say thank you, and to say welcome home. And I'd like to go ahead and just open with a brief prayer. Almighty God, today we're gathered today to honor the men and the women of all branches of the United States military who served during the Vietnam War. I ask your blessings on all of our veterans, their families, and their friends. May you protect all our military forces around the world each and every day, and may we never forget all of those who have served this great nation. Amen.
All right, thank you, Dr. Correa. We really appreciate that. Now, please welcome the Paloma Valley High School NJROTC Color Guard, who will present the colors, along with Audrey Woyson, who will sing the national anthem. At this time, we welcome all veterans to salute the flag and all other attendees to place your right hand over your hearts.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land and of the free and the home of the brave?
Folks, let's give them a hand. Thank you, Color Guard, and thank you, Audrey. And we also want to extend thanks to Audrey's parents for continuing to allow the city of Menifee to employ her talents. So thank you, sir. At this time, I'd like to invite up California State Senator Kelly Sayarto to provide remarks. Senator.
Well, thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. And to our veterans, our Vietnam veterans, thank you for your service, your sacrifice. Welcome home. And I want to tell you that I am one of the most blessed senators in the state. The communities that I represent, any that span from Chino Hills and Yorba Linda all the way down to North San Diego County, and then out to the desert. They all have one common theme, and they revere their veterans. And they're constantly seeking ways for us to be more helpful. And one of those things that you see out here that you don't see elsewhere in the state is events like this. Events like, because it's better late than never, I guess. You guys didn't get the welcome home that you deserved. And a lot of people have been trying to figure out, how do we help? How do we make that better? How do we right that? And it is hard. You're never going to make it right, but you can acknowledge it and continue to let people know how much we care, how much their service meant to us, and the sacrifice that they have given means to us. At the state, we have a priorities problem. I think you all know that. And it's amazing that we can have so many veterans that are out on the street, so many veterans that are battling mental illnesses and other illnesses caused by Agent Orange and other things like that. And yet the resources that we need to put into augmenting whatever meager resources we get from the national level never seem to appear. They don't seem to be the priority. And that's because, you know, it's in the nature of people who serve, our veterans, to not push their way to the front. They allow others to go in front of them. And unfortunately, in today's time, there's a lot of people that want to be in the front of the line, especially when it comes to funding and programs and things like that. And so our veterans keep taking a step back and allowing those folks to be in the front of the line. So, and we shouldn't be asking our veterans, hey, you know, tell us, you know, that you want to be in front. We should be putting you in the front of the line. And we're not doing that. And so we will continue that fight in Sacramento to ensure that we put the appropriate amount of resources to fix this and to make it right. And all of our Vietnam veterans, you're all senior citizens now because you're a little older than me and I'm a senior citizen. But I am grateful for everything that I've been able to do and have since I graduated from high school in the late 70s. We're going to leave it at that. Because you paved the way for all of that. You paved the way for these awesome communities that we live in out here in the 32nd Senate District. And that's why I hope you feel at home here, because there are definitely a lot of people out there who want you to feel welcome, who want you to feel like this is your home forever. And we will keep working really hard to try to ensure that you get your due, because you are certainly owed that. So thank you for allowing me to be part of this and to continue serving up in Sacramento, because I personally value what you do, and I know the people that I represent do. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator. And Coincidentally, I happen to work for the past 11 and a half years, one of Senator Ciarto's colleagues in Sacramento, and I echo everything that he says. I don't care about political party, any of that mess. He's right. Veterans deserve more respect, and they need more funding at all levels of government. So thank you, Senator. Next, I want to invite our mayor, your mayor of the city of Menifee, Bill Zimmerman, to provide some remarks.
Thank you, Alton. Well, good morning. This is one of my very favorite events. I'm very, very encouraged by the turnout, and I hope that this is something that we can do in perpetuity. This city of Menifee, we are patriotic. We care about those who serve, and we honor and we're grateful for all of those who are in our military. And I just want to extend and just a small message to all the cadets here in our NJROTC. I'm so proud of you guys. I was at your pass and review last Friday and saw all of the wonderful things you're doing under Master Sergeant Puebla. And for you to be here this morning, welcoming our Vietnam veterans that served, thank you. It shows that today's generation appreciates something that happened over 50 years ago. And so that gives us encouragement here. I also want to thank Stephanie Ornelas from Miller Jones, who was instrumental in bringing the Wall That Heals last year to Menifee. That's something that only happens a few places each year throughout the country, and yet right here in our city of Menifee, it made me and all of my colleagues so proud to have that come here and have that opportunity for all of you. I know that it's not about what the city's saying, but it's about the camaraderie among yourselves. Those who served together, you have that special bond. And together you're going to meet new people and you're going to have a conversation about them. And that is what strength is. That is the value of this event today. Like I said, I hope we always do this. I'm just sharing from the perspective of the city of Menifee. My colleagues are about to share with you as well a similar message, but just want to say thank you for everybody for being here, and thank you. Welcome home, Vietnam veterans. We appreciate you from the bottom of our heart here in Menifee. All right, I'm going to ask a military veteran, my Mayor Pro Tem and colleague, Dean Dinas. Let's make him feel welcome.
Good morning. I can honestly say that I find it hard to find the words to express the honor I have to stand before you as Vietnam veterans. My third son was homeschooled, so since I liked history, I became his history teacher. I remember we got the part of the history book that talked about the Vietnam War. And two things I realized. One, it can't be history because I was alive then. And so I think they got ahead of themselves in the history book. But second, I had a chance to tell them that what he reads on the pages about the war and the controversy, to look past that and to the men and women that served there and what they did, that they gave up their youth, their early years to defend our country. And that has stayed with me. I had the opportunity to serve with many Vietnam veterans when I was in the service and hear their stories, as well as after I got out to meet some and hear their stories as well. It was really planted in my heart that something had to be done for our Vietnam veterans. So I want to thank my colleagues here that when I brought up my vision of a Vietnam Veterans Welcome Home Day event, that they embraced that. And also for our city staff who made that vision a reality. But I want you to know, let me back up. One thing they asked me at the time, said, well, how long should we do that? Is it a one-time one or ongoing? I go, well, it should be done until there's none left. Because that's how important you men and women are to our community. And I've vowed never to make sure that you are never forgotten and remember your service, your sacrifice, and your heroism that you displayed during that period. So thank you so much. Welcome home, and thank you for your service. So now I'd like to turn it over to Councilman Bob Carlin.
Thank you, Dean. You know, as I look around this room at so many of the veterans we have here and the future of our military, I think I can confidently say I am standing in the safest place in America, because there's nothing that could take down anybody in this room without a fight. And that's something that you can't take away from a person. That spirit, that strength, that willing to stand for something is what you Vietnam veterans bring to this nation and the future generations and to this great city of Menifee. As the song goes, I'm proud to be an American. And it's because of the service and the sacrifice of the people in this room and those who did not make it home that allows us to be proud to be Americans, and why we stand to salute that flag, and why I always will. The city of Menifee loves its veterans. I represent District 1, which includes Sun City, and we've got some of the highest amount of veterans of any city in America, and I'm thrilled to represent you all. I have several members of my family who served in Vietnam and other eras, and I'm just such a great supporter of the military, and every time I get a chance to stand up here and tell you thank you for your service and welcome home, I will do it every single time. So thank you for your service and welcome home. Now I'd like to turn it over for some remarks by Councilmember Lisa Sobek.
Thank you. As a daughter of a member of the military who served our country, and as a mother of a son who served our country, I am privileged to be able to be here today to say thank you for your service, as it's been said, and welcome home, as it's been needed to be said over and over and never to be forgotten. It is very humbling to be amongst you. And when I looked at the American flag, and as I do at many events we have in our city, I want you to know that I see your faces. I see the men and women who have served, that I have the freedom that I have today, that I can serve my community. We are a city who honors, loves, and cares about our veterans, and especially today, our Vietnam veterans. And it's not going to stop. As you drove up Bradley Road here on the way to Paloma Valley High School, you saw pictures on light posts that I hope you paid attention to. These are heroes that live in our city. We have a beautiful military banner program. And I hope that if you are in our city, that you are on one of those banners somewhere where I can drive down the street and our residents can drive down the streets, our youth can drive down the streets and see the faces of those men and women who have sacrificed and continue to sacrifice for our freedom. So again, I am humbled. You are the heroes, and I recognize you as that. And thank you for being here today. Thank you, Paloma Valley High School, and all the groups who have partnered with the city to do this. And I do hope, as Mayor Pro Tem Dean Dynas said, we will continue to do this as long as we can. Have a wonderful day.
You know, for politicians, it's impressive that nobody had their notes, if you noticed that. Nobody. And that's indicative of what they feel in their hearts, and that they actually meant every word they said, and it came from their hearts. So thank you, Mayor and council members, for your kind remarks. You know, during our planning meetings, and George Swift, he's up next. He's the keynote speaker today. But we limited George in our planning meetings to 10 minutes. But since he went to Vietnam and I did not, he can speak as long as he wants. Our keynote speaker today is Mr. George Swift, who of course is a Vietnam veteran. He was born in Fort Mills, Corregidor, which is in the Philippines, and grew up in San Bernardino, California. George served in the United States Navy from 1958 to 1963 and rose to the rank of Petty Officer, Second Class. He's been a member of the Vietnam Veterans of America, Chapter 47, for over 30 years, and he's been the president of that chapter for the last 6 years. George's passion and labor of love has been to assist veterans, and he honors the founding principle that never again will one generation of veterans abandon another. And he does that by volunteering to feed over 500 veterans at a local veterans village. Ladies and gentlemen, please offer a warm round of applause for Mr. George Swift.
Thank you. You know, you shouldn't have this, because you Marines will make planes out of him and start. Welcome home. Should have heard that 30 years ago. I'm George Swift, and we have one of the most active chapters of the Vietnam vets. We do feed 500 veterans or more a week at these veterans villages that are located in Riverside at March Village. There's Veterans Village. There's one in Loma Linda's Veterans Village. And also there's a brand new one downtown Riverside behind the Fox Theater that just opened. And they have veterans in there. These are people that were homeless or almost homeless. They were at risk. We have some in Beaumont, and we have a new place out in the desert, Cathedral City. They're under construction right now is an 80-room village in Redlands and 2 more in San Bernardino. And what we do is we put food in the pantries there. They put these people in these, but the guys didn't have a thing to their name when they came there. Not even a bicycle. Barely had clothes on their back. And we helped put food in there because they had no way to get their food. They gave them some food stamps, but they have to walk a mile or 3 miles or wherever to get to some place to buy food. So we put pantries in every one of those places. And last year, through donations, we spent $28,000 just on milk and eggs for these veterans. And we are proud to do that, and we'll continue to do it as Chapter 47. A little bit, when they mentioned the word Corregidor, I don't know if anybody knows where that was at, or still at. It's in the Philippines, and it was used as a fort, and it was designed and built with guns on it to wipe out the Japanese when they came into the harbor to invade Manila. But the Japanese knew that, so they went around and came down to the Bataan Peninsula. My father got stationed there in 1938, and my mother was not happy about it, as she said, because she and my sister were living at the Presidio. And I guess you know where the Presidio at, you would not want to go to Okinawa. They called it the Rock. And I'll never forget the day my mother came in and told me, son, I got to tell you something. You were born on a rock. I said, and not under the rock, but on the rock. So, and I said, well, where was that? And she told me. Anyway, we were there, and the Japanese were invading the Philippines, and we were outnumbered 25-1. And one day, I'm about 1.5 years old, and this general come up and picked me up and said, hey, who's this kid? And I said, it's Sergeant Swift's kid. They said, well, get her uniform on. We need all the guys to get. So I was recruited, drafted when I was 1.5 years old, guys. And the guy who picked me up was General MacArthur. So It was a terrible war for my dad. You know, the Death March and all that. So, one thing my dad told me one time, he said, when you go in the service, you don't want to run around the jungle. So I joined the Navy. And it was because I can swim a lot farther than I can fly, so that's why I didn't do it in the Air Force. I was in Vietnam early. We were the first destroyers in Vietnam in 1962. As a matter of fact, we landed the first Marines in Vietnam in 1962, if you knew that or not. How many people were in Vietnam at that early age? No, just me. I came home and watched you guys go. Oh, wait, pardon me. Yeah, we started, that's right. We did the harassing. Well, living on a destroyer in the Navy is not a nice thing. And one of the things that scared the hell out of me more than somebody shooting at me was the weather. And I don't know if you know, but destroyers are not very seaworthy. And they're called tin cans. Carriers are called bird farms. Sewer pipe sailors are submarines. Anyway, when you have a typhoon, you don't go to port and park your ships. No, the Navy doesn't do that. You ride out the typhoon. And we were in a typhoon for 3 days. And I thought that was the end of my life. Because that ship took such rolls that you can almost walk on the bulkheads. And we were hitting, the water was coming over the bow, over the bridge, and down the #1 stack. And they were scared to death that it was going to put the fires out in those boilers, and then we'd be stuck out there. So it's not a pleasant trip to be on. And just to iterate that, in 1944, at the end of the Second World War, or toward the end of the Second World War, we lost 4 destroyers off of the Philippines. Halsey's Tycoon, they called it. They all 4 sunk in a typhoon. Now, they don't know whether they ran out of fuel, because if you run out of fuel, you're just a cork out there. But either that or they got swamped. But destroyers will turn over and come back up. But they do a lot of damage when they do that. Anyway, Vietnam should have never happened. If President Kennedy got his way, we'd have never went to Vietnam. Because President Kennedy saw the corruption and the thievery of the money that we were sending them by the South Vietnam government. And we were training the troops. Yeah, we were losing our guys because they were the Viet Cong were picking off our guys who were doing the training of the South Vietnamese soldiers. In 1962, the South started to invade the North started invading the South, and there was a lot more Viet Cong and North Vietnamese Army in there. So Kennedy says, we don't need to send any more money. He gave direct orders in like August of '63, telling the Chief of Staff, bring all the troops home by December. Kennedy got killed in November. President Johnson said, we're not going to let communism proliferate the world, so we're going to Vietnam. And that's what happened. As you know as well as I do, that this was a war, a very unpopular war, and you fought with one arm behind your back because you had to get permission to do anything. We were in the Gulf. We had all kinds of skirmishes in the Gulf before the Gulf of Tonkin incident happened in '64. Those little boats were shooting at us all the time, and we weren't allowed to shoot back unless we got permission from the the head of the 7th Fleet. So, and talking about off limits, rubber plantations were off limits for bombing, is that right? They wouldn't let you bomb them because the French needed their rubber to make their tires. Also, was anybody in the Battle of Hue City? Terrible battle. And you had to be careful because they didn't want you to ruin the architect of the city. And they wanted you to protect the citadel. I guess we finally blew it up. But That was the way the war was. It was run by politicians instead of by the generals. The one general who did a great job, he got shot twice. He had 2 Purple Hearts because he went out in the field to find out what's going on. And he got reprimanded by the Pentagon and sent back to the Pentagon because he was doing his duty too good. No, we escalated the war, and we escalated to a point where we had more people getting killed there than we should have had, 58,000. No, that was wrong. And like I said, if Kennedy had his way, we wouldn't have been there. The war went on, and things happened. One of the worst things that happened was the spraying of Agent Orange. You don't realize how many people have died from that stuff. We've lost a lot of people from that. In Vietnam War, there was 9.5 million people who served during Vietnam. 2,600,000 served boots on ground or in the Gulf. Today, of the people who served on ground, on land, 2 million of them are dead. They've already died because of Agent Orange, PTSD, all kinds of cancers from Agent Orange, and suicides. We had in Vietnam, one of the notes is that we had 250,000 women that served during Vietnam, and 10 to 15,000 served in ground. Of the 58,000 men that have names on the wall, 33,000 of those are under 21. Vietnam, the average age in Vietnam was 19 years old. The average age in the Second World War was 24. There's where we lost a lot of our good men. Vietnam was the last war to have MIAs and POWs. And we still have 1,500 missing that we can't account for. And that families don't have closures. And we were working very well with the Vietnam government, but then all of a sudden, they've stopped it now. We can't go over there anymore. Because of the people who lived there would find bones, and we would discover them and take them over to Hawaii, where we had that center to try to DNA them. We came home, and we never told anybody because we weren't welcome. People spit at us, they called us names. You go in a parade, and you just weren't welcome. In fact, when you left the base, they told you not to wear your uniform. Isn't that right? They didn't want anybody to know who you were. And the reason we have March the 30th, 1973 was the last day that troops were brought home from Vietnam. But we didn't get a welcome party come home. The president, he was too busy trying to keep his own ass out of water with Watergate. So he didn't know about us. We were the last thing on his list. Nobody knew anything. It wasn't until 1991 when Desert Storm came about. And President Bush was going to have a big party, a big welcome home for them. And that's when he was confronted with, well, what did you ever do with the Vietnam vets? You never welcomed them home. And that's when we finally got recognized. Now, I want to thank the city of Menifee because they have done a great job of recognizing the Vietnam vets. And I can tell you, you can go around these other cities here. I don't see any presentation. Look at the size of Riverside. You don't have anything for us. San Bernardino, no. But a little city like Menifee. And tomorrow we're going to go to Beaumont because they're going to do one for us. So we certainly thank you, Mayor, and your council. Now, when we came home, We also weren't allowed to join any other organizations. I tried to join the American Legion, and they wouldn't take my application. And I'm sure some of you tried to join organizations, and they wouldn't take your application. So what happened? Well, in 1978, there was an organization out of New York called the Vietnam Veterans of America. And a man by the name of Robert Mueller was the executive director who started the Vietnam Vets of America. And we decided that we needed to take this country on and get recognition. First thing is PTSD. Before we put it in the legislature, and before we went after the Congress people to pass legislation, there wasn't anything called PTSD. It was called shell shock. So they said, oh, you just got shell shock. Go over here and take care of that. Well, that wasn't that. It was PTSD. And we got the strongest legislation ever for PTSD. We also got the Agent Orange legislation, and it's still going on. As a matter of fact, Blue Water Navy has a bill in right now to extend beyond the 12-mile limit the spraying of the beer. Understand something, when they sprayed that stuff, it just floated out. And where the winds blew, it would go out and it would land on the water. Well, folks, where do you think those ships get their fresh water from? They get it from this ocean, the evaporators. And those evaporators can't take all of the chemicals that are in the Agent Orange out of it. So you still have parts of that. It still goes into, you shower, you drink it, it's on your ship. And the 12-mile limit, carriers never were in the 12-mile limit. Carriers were way out further. So they float out there, that stuff would float out. So we didn't like the idea that they restricted a 12-mile limit. So they're going to put a bill in to try to change it now. Also, there's the PACT Act. They're going to include some new language because there's some new cancers that they discovered now that come from Agent Orange. So we need to get those put in for people who got those cancers. And heart defects, and everything else you can think of came in there. Anyway, we are still fighting the war. But the biggest gift we got was for the veterans today, and that's the GI Bill. It's the most advanced GI Bill you ever want to see. It pays you to go to school, which ours didn't when we went to school, when we came home. It's a great, and it's a great incentive for you folks that are ROTC, that want to go on. 2 years, and you're a veteran. You're a veteran for life. You take the oath, and you never give that oath up. They never ask you to give it up when you leave. You're stuck with it for the rest of your life, so you have to live up to it. Anyway, in closing, I just want to thank all you veterans that served, and you didn't go to Canada or burn your card, obviously. Thank you very much for your service, and welcome home.
George, we thank you, and we thank your chapter members. And as a matter of fact, if you are a member of the Vietnam Veterans of America, whether it's Chapter 47 or not, please stand up right now. Chapter members, thank you. Thank you for everything you do in supporting George. At this time, we would like to acknowledge our Vietnam veterans in attendance today. So, if you are a Vietnam veteran, at this moment, please stand, salute, or raise your hand to be honored. Vietnam veterans, please stand up. Please remain standing. If you're able to, please remain standing. I would now like to ask all spouses and family members of Vietnam veterans to please stand. Spouses, family members. To all of you, on behalf of the city of Menifee, we thank you for your service. We thank you for your sacrifices. You may be seated. Now, at this time, we would like to invite Audrey Woyson. And Audrey, she's actually a student at Liberty High School, one of the district's newest schools. So we want to invite back up again Miss Audrey Woyson to perform the Armed Forces medley. Service members, when you hear your branch's song, please stand up. Audrey?
Off we go into the wild blue yonder, climbing high into the sun. Here he comes in to meet our thunder, and our boys give him a gun. Down we dive, sprouting our flame from under, off with one very loud roar. We live in fame, go down in flame. Hey, nothing can stop the USA force. First we fight for our right and to build our nation's might, and the army goes rolling along. Proud of all we have done, fighting till the battle's won, and the army goes rolling along. Then there's hi, hi, hey, the army's on its way. Count all your cannons out and strong. To Fort we'll go. You will always know that the army goes rolling along. Anchors away, my boys, anchors away. Farewell to college joys, we celebrate of day, day through our last night on shores. Anchors away until we meet once more. She's wishing you a happy voyage home. We're always ready for the call. We place our trust in thee. Through surf or storm or howling gale, how shall our purpose be? Semper Paratus is our guide, our fame, our glory too. To fight, to save, or fight and die, I Coast Guard, we are for you. Where the mighty watchful eye, guarding as beyond the blue, the invisible front line, war fighters brave and true, boldly reaching into space. There's no limit to our sky, standing guard both night and day. We're the Space Force far on high. From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, we fight our country's battles in the air, on land and sea. First to fight for right and freedom, and to keep our honor clean. We are proud to claim the title of United States Marines. Hoorah!
Thank you, Audrey. She even included the Space Force, and I know her dad made sure that the Marine Corps one was extra loud, so thank you, sir. All right. I now invite up Tony Robbs, who's the chaplain for VFW Post 1956, to present the POW MIA table.
Thank you, sir. For those of you, if you notice, looking to my left, a table that sits alone. This is a tradition that was set and separate apart to honor our prisoners and those missing in action. This has been done ever since the Vietnam War. We do this in the manner of reflect and to remember all those that have sacrificed, our brothers and sisters in arms. As you'll notice, the table itself is smaller. One of the things about the table is that not only is it smaller, but it symbolizes the frailty of a prisoner alone against his or her aggressors. The white cloth draped over the table represents the purity of their response to their country's call to arms. The empty chair that you see here depicts the unknown face representing no specific soldier, sailor, airman, or Marine, but all who are not here with us today. The round table shows our concern for them, never ending. The single rose reminds us of their families and their loved ones. The red ribbon represents the love of their country, which inspired them to answer the nation's call. The yellow candle, with its ribbon, symbolizes the everlasting hope for the joyous reunion for those yet accounted for. The slice of lemon on the bread plate depicts their bitter fate. The salt on the bread plate also represents the family's tears. And the inverted glass that you see. That inverted glass reminds us that our distinguished comrades cannot be here to toast with us. And for everlasting, forevermore, we'll always remember them. Please keep this in mind when you see a vet. And those of you that are thinking about going into service, always remember this. This is a fraternity that you'll never have to ever leave. Once you're in for life. We are the 1%ers. You volunteered and you came here. You did your job. You suffered. Some of us didn't come home. Some of us are still mangled today, whether in body or in mind or in spirit. Some are broken, and some are still going through. But keep this in mind. We are one.
Thank you, Tony. We would now like to invite up and ask Dr. Michael Cano, who is the commander of VFW Post 1956, and Mr. George Swift, president of Vietnam Veterans of America, Chapter 47, to lay the memorial wreath next to the POW MIA table. Now, a student from here, Marcus Santoso, will play taps. Thank you, Dr. Cano and George, and thank you, Marcus. You may be seated. The Memories of the Wall documentary was filmed last year when the City of Menifee co-hosted the Wall That Heals exhibit in Mobile Education Center. Now, the Memorial Wall replica provided the opportunity for veterans, their families, and our local community here to honor and reflect upon the legacy of our Vietnam veterans, allowing the memorial's healing legacy to continue. This documentary is a collection of veteran stories, Vietnam-era videos, interviews, and special moments captured by the City of Menifee TV production and communication team.
We wish to emphasize we seek no wider war. Our response will depend upon the aggressors, in this case the North Vietnamese.
We have made a national pledge to help South Vietnam, and I intend to keep that promise. I have today ordered to Vietnam the Air Mobile Division and certain other forces which will raise our fighting strength from 75,000 to 125,000 men almost immediately. To send the flower of our youth, our finest young men, into battle.
Have concluded an agreement to end the war and bring peace with honor in Vietnam. That this is a peace that lasts, and also a peace that heals.
I graduated from high school without any plans. One of my best friends, same thing. And one day we were talking about the Vietnam War. We were coming out of YMCA in Pasadena. Both of us were interested in the military. And so as we walked out of the YMCA, we saw a recruiting office across the street. So we thought, well, let's just check it out. So we walked into the recruiting office, and he wanted to be a Marine. For some reason, that was his dream. And I wanted to be an Army paratrooper. 45 minutes later, we walked out, and I said, "What'd you do?" And he said, "I joined the Marines." He said to me, "What did you do?" And I said, "I joined the Army." I graduated, and my orders were for Korea. So I went, and I thought, well, this was not what I asked for. And in the meantime, my buddy who had gone in the Marines, actually down here in San Diego, where he did his training, he ended up in Vietnam. And while he was there, he was mortally wounded.
My grandfather is a Vietnam veteran. I have a lot of veterans in my family, but I knew that he would never be able to make it to Washington and see the wall in person. And it was important to me that before he passed away, that I bring some type of wall to him. When I came to Miller Jones, I was transferred here in April of last year. I found the opportunity to apply through their process with the organization for the Wall That Heals. So in November, when they told me, "Hey, do you have time for a call?" And I said, "Sure." They said, "We would like to bring the Wall That Heals to Menifee." I almost fell out of my seat. I couldn't believe it. I had a breakfast meeting with Mayor Zimmerman. When I told him, I think he almost fell out of his chair at breakfast because he couldn't believe it. And he says, "You've got to be kidding me." And I said, "No." I said, "So I'm asking you right now, do you think it'll be a chance that you guys want to be partners with us? Because I have other people that are actually on a list." And he said, "Forget those other people. We are in."
All law enforcement officers on motorcycles will be heading up the procession. All of our Vietnam veteran riders will follow, along with the groups that we had already mentioned. We sincerely appreciate the service of everybody who served during the Vietnam War and the Vietnam era. And thank you for your service and welcome home.
Well, we come out here to honor the veterans that are on this wall. I have some friends, their names on that wall, and one of them was put on that wall because he went to the PX for me, and I'll never forget him.
I went to school with a lot of guys that didn't make it back to Vietnam. So
It is 375 feet long, approximately 7.5 feet high at the apex. Once we measure out the area, then we set up the frames. And once we get the frames all level and all plumb, we stake everything down. Once that's all ready to go, it could take anywhere from 6 to 12 hours, depending on volunteers and depending on the weather.
Once I heard about this project being a thing, it was automatic. Just giving back to the veteran community is something that I do. Did 22 years in the Marine Corps, so giving back to the community and just paying it forward is something that I always strongly believe in. And I just, again, once the opportunity presents itself, to me, it was a no-brainer.
Does anybody here have someone on the wall? I have yours. Yes, sir. Okay. If you do, please see one of us and we will make sure you're able to carry that panel down, okay? And you can carry them home. The memorial you see does have the names of the 58,281 people who made the ultimate sacrifice in D.C.
yeah, Panel 2 West, my buddy, we were in the service together for 3 years. And 2 weeks before coming home, he bought it. And that was it.
So where's this one? This one's one. I'll leave that. It doesn't say.
Got it. Guys, go ahead.
Our foundation is the Vietnam Veteran Memorial Fund. It started in 1979 with our founder, Vietnam veteran Jan Scruggs. He decided he wanted to do something to remember all of those who fought in Vietnam and those who died in Vietnam. In the 90s, our organization had realized that not everybody could get to DC to see the wall. So they decided to create a traveling wall. And they also recognized the importance of continuing the education so that the legacy of those who fought and those who died would never be forgotten. We also brought with us the Mobile Education Center that not only carries the wall, but it opens up and it's a museum style.
This exhibit will visit 32 communities across the United States this year, but for this week, the city of Menifee will be its home.
The people coming out to see it has blown my mind. They were expecting maybe 300 people at their meeting today, at their ceremony, and they had almost 700.
This is a blessing of healing of those who come hurt, and those spirits also that reach out from the wall. And also honor the war dogs of Vietnam, which we had over 4,000. 362 were KIA in Vietnam, and 250 were brought home. The silent heroes are the service dogs, the war dogs, K9, that served in Vietnam from 1959 all the way to 1975. Over 4,000 dogs serve our country. 362 of them were KIA, that means killed in action. And like I said, our government brought some home, but later on they decided not to let them go to the public, and they euthanized them like that.
It gets emotional. I get there, I want to touch it, but it just makes me so emotional about it that I have people say that they can't even look at it, but I'm not like that. I can look at it, and I say a prayer for all the people that I knew that on that wall, for all the people I knew personally. I have probably at least 30, 40 people that I know. Some of them were my kids I went to school with. Some of them were kids I went to boot camp with. And some of them with the unit that I was in Vietnam, which is 3rd Battalion, 3rd Marine Regiment. Younger generation probably don't know anything at all about the wars. You know, they know about Iraq and Afghanistan, but Vietnam, Korea, World War II, they don't know anything about that. So I think when you do something like this, it helps the kids to give them a better concept of what's going on.
I've learned so many amazing stories. I've learned how many people you walk past in your daily life who have connections to war or to Vietnam, and like you don't realize it, and they're just untapped stories. And I'm glad they're able to pass on the stories, because the ability to share stories it ensures that it never dies, that it's always there.
When I talked to him about it, he didn't want to talk about it. He never wanted to talk about his experiences in Vietnam. He didn't want me and my brothers to go into the armed forces, because it was really personal to him about how people reacted to folks coming back from serving in the war. So to me, it's kind of full circle that as an adult, as a professional, as a representative of the city, to be able to honor Vietnam veterans, especially with my dad who passed away several years ago. This is a very personal thing for me, to be able to honor our living Vietnam veterans and those who've passed.
More than just seeing the wall, it's seeing the people see the wall, and then realizing what it is what's important.
We appreciate the fact now that we're getting just recognized. It doesn't have to be a big deal, but for me, like I say, just be there.
Thank you, for not me, well, these guys here.
I'm far from you, with tired hands and a broken soul. My heart longs for you. I'm far from you, with tired hands and a broken soul. My heart longs for you. In the midst of a foreign land, on the front lines for the stars and the stripes, I close my eyes and dream of home. Hold me in your heart, never let go. Keep my name alive. Keep my name alive.
Your Vietnam veteran, please stand up. On behalf of this great city, welcome home, welcome home, welcome home. You may be seated. Thank you all again for coming out today, supporting our Vietnam veterans. We wish you the very best. May God continue to bless you, your veterans, your family members, your survivors, the city of Menifee, and the United States of America. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.